Hey, it's me again. How are you? I just wanted to talk to you on this gorgeous Saturday afternoon. I was going to make this video for next Friday, but I don't have very many videos on my channel yet, so I thought I would give this to you early. This is my Imposter Syndrome video, and so, well, here it is. Okay, so imposter syndrome. What is imposter syndrome? Well, let's go to the PowerPoint. I know PowerPoints are boring. I get it, but this keeps me on track. If I didn't have PowerPoints or I didn't have something written down, then I would go off on tangents and talk about all sorts of stuff that would not be pertinent to information I want to. So this is just really for me. So as you can tell, it's a very boring PowerPoint, but if you need to, just look at my little portrait there in the corner, and I'm talking directly to you. Now, imposter syndrome, I need to do the little disclaimer, of course, because I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. If you look at the little point up here, I've taken psychology classes in college, and I almost minored in psychology. I almost have enough hours to minor, but I didn't quite. My focus was in undergrad was English literature and culture because I studied several literature in several cultures as well, Japanese, Native American, South American literature. So I focused kind of on that, and so I did take a lot of psychology because at first I hated psychology. I took a psychology class in the first college I went to, which was a junior college, and I hated it. I thought, this is terrible. And then as I progressed through my undergrad degree, I started noticing that there was different kinds of psychology, like institutional psychology and sociology and things like that. And I started getting interested, and so I ended up taking developmental psychology. I ended up taking organizational psychology, and I took several. Like I said, I almost minored in it, not quite. So I'm not an expert in psychology. So I'm going to point this imposter syndrome towards writing and specifically towards publishing books, rather than being like out in the private or public sector where people are, like if you're some sort of executive or something like that, which that also has imposter syndrome. But I'm going to point it specifically to our profession, which is writing and writing books. So I'm not an expert. If you feel like you might have imposter syndrome, you should seek medical advice from an actual mental health professional. The information I'm going to present here is just for informational purposes only. It's not meant to be any kind of diagnosis or medical advice of any kind. But if you do recognize what I'm about to tell you in yourself, then seek out professional help. Go to a psychologist or a therapist, which I'll probably mention that again later on. So what is imposter syndrome? It's also called imposter phenomenon. And it's a feeling that you lucked into the successful position you're currently in, but you do not necessarily deserve it based on your expertise or your hard work. Many, pointing towards the author world, many indie authors feel like they shouldn't be published, or they shouldn't be receiving their success, or people shouldn't buy their books because they don't have a writing degree, or they don't have an English degree, or for some other reason. I've seen Brandon Sanderson do his lectures on, especially his teen. What was it? It's like a teen symposium or something, where for teen writers, he gives like 10 things that he wish he had known when he was a teen writer. And one of those things is that he wished that he would have known that you don't have to be a professional writer to be a writer. And the example he used in the one I saw was he had a friend that liked golf, and he was like, "Hey, so and so, you like golf a lot?" And like, friend is like, "Yeah." He says, "So you're going to be a professional golfer?" And he's like, "Well, no, you don't. You can like golf and you can play golf without going on the professional golf tour and trying to be a professional golfer. You can love the sport and play it and have fun with it without being a professional. I mean, I'm a bassist. I play bass guitar. I'm a bassist, And I love playing the bass, and I play it with a video game called Rocksmith, 2014, and I play when I became pretty good at it. I play along with YouTube videos and things, just to have fun with it. Do I think I'm going to be a professional bassist and go out and play with a band somewhere sometime? No, probably not. I mean, I started off drumming, and then I realized that the drums were. I got tired of lugging them around. They were too heavy and had to lug them around everywhere, and they were loud, and you couldn't really do an apartment. See, I'm off on a tangent. I told you if I didn't have something to follow, I would get off on something else. But anyway, the point is, I love playing bass guitar. It's fun. I enjoy it. I enjoy playing the tunes, but I don't have any aspirations to become a professional at this age, become a professional bassist in a band or something. Maybe playing a little local band or something, possibly, but you get the point. All right, so this comes from a psychologist, types of imposter syndrome. Like I said, it's also called imposter phenomenon. These are the five types, and I'm going to tell you the one that I fall into, because yes, I do suffer from imposter syndrome sometimes when especially with books, and I'll tell you specifically my story in a second. The perfectionist, this is the type of imposter syndrome that involves believing that unless you are absolutely perfect, you could have done better. That didn't make sense. This is why I teach you sentences, because someone wrote this and I'm like, what? Okay, this type of imposter syndrome involves believing that unless you were absolutely perfect, you could have done better. Okay, it does make sense. I just didn't read it right. You feel like an imposter because your perfectionistic traits make you believe that you're not as good as others might think you are. So what this one does is you're a perfectionist, and it leads you to be so much of a perfectionist that in relation to books and book writing, you never get finished with your book. You're always tweaking it. You're always trying to make it better, to the point where, at some point you're just going to have to say it's good enough. This is the best I can do, and release it to the public and let everybody else have their say on it. Eventually you're just going to have to get to that point. If you're a perfectionist, you're never going to feel probably that it's at the level that you want it to be. So, it's just going to be a vicious cycle. Then there's the expert. The expert feels like an imposter because they don't know everything there is to know about a particular subject or topic, or they haven't mastered every step in a process. This is, I don't really have this. I mean, I'm an expert in grammar and English, the English language, and I know that I am, and I've taught classes, in public school, and then the last 5 years teaching grammar online. I'm pretty comfortable with it now. I don't really have this kind of imposter syndrome. I did feel stupid in the first couple of videos that I made, because the first video I was calling a complex sentence a compound sentence, which I knew the difference. I knew better, and then I really haven't figured out how to go back and change that. So I just kind of correct it in the second one. So if you watch those, just understand that I do know the difference. It was just I was excited about making my first video and etc. See, I'm explaining, and that might be a part of imposter syndrome. But anyway, the expert, they don't feel like they've reached the rank of expert, because of whatever reason. And I'm going to tell you how to overcome that one here in just a moment. The natural genius. In this imposter syndrome type, you may feel like a fraud simply because you don't believe that you are naturally intelligent or competent. If you don't get something right the first time around, or it takes you longer to master a skill, you feel like an imposter. That has to do, I think, with people comparing themselves to others. So people catch on to things faster. I remember when I was in school, I'm not very good at math. I mean, obviously I excel at English and literature and linguistics and things like that, but no. Math can solve its own problems. I don't not very good at it. So I remember being in math class in algebra, and I remember my two friends that were in that same class, they would burn through their homework and get done before class ended. And I was like halfway through, and I remember I would stop and pretend like I was done too, because I was just amazed that they could get through it so fast, and I couldn't. And then I would end up turning in half of homework, and they were making A's and I was making C's or D's, and they were like, I kind of hid it from them. So it's because they were faster. They naturally caught on to it faster than I did. And I thought if they saw me not catching on to it as fast as they did, that they would somehow think I was lesser than them. And this is, of course, when I was a kid. So, I don't feel this way anymore. But I felt like, I'm stupid because I can't get these math problems as fast as they can. But I just wasn't as good with the math as they were. Now, I didn't think of it in the way that, hey, when we're in English class, if they were in the same English class I was in, I may be excelling way past them on all the stuff I understood about English, and they may be faltering in that. I didn't even think about that. I was expert in something else. This is what they were expert in, or whatever. The soloist. Now, this is the one that I have the problem with. This is where I'm going to tell you my story here in a moment. It's also possible to feel like an imposter if you had to ask for help or reach a certain level or status. Since you couldn't get there on your own, you question your competence or abilities. Now, relating this to my authorship, being a writer, it has taken me years and forever to start relying on beta readers and start looking for people to write reviews or asking for reviews and things like that. Or even in this channel, starting to ask for people to subscribe. If you notice, I always forget. Hey, subscribe, by the way. I'm going to ask you now, just so I don't forget later, because I forget by the end. Subscribe and like, like all the other channels always tell you all the time. But I forget to do that because I don't like asking for it. I don't like asking for you to subscribe. I don't like asking people to leave me reviews if they like the book, because I'm deep down, I'm thinking, well, they might not like it. So if I tell them to like and leave reviews, it might backfire on me or something. So I have the soloist a little bit. I don't like asking for help. Don't like asking for reviews. I don't like asking for subscribes. I feel like, well, if you like the content, you'll subscribe whether ask or not. So why bombard you with asking? So I have that problem, the soloist. All right, and then there's the super person, or sometimes it's called the superhero. This type of imposter syndrome involves believing that you must be the hardest worker or reach the highest levels of achievement possible. And if you don't, you are a fraud. Okay, so this is what happens with imposter syndrome people. They may work harder to prove that they're competent and end up burning out because you're trying to reach impossible goals that you've set. Maybe you've seen somebody else reach a certain level of achievement and you think, I need to reach that as well in order to be competent. And it's just not in the cards for you to be able to reach that level in that way. So you're basically working against yourself. This is the second part here: make impossible goals and then become depressed that you can't make the goal, because your success may be measured in a smaller measurement than that other person. Other person might have a good support system behind them that you don't have, or they might have some other thing that you don't have, and you have achieved in your own right, but you're not recognizing that achievement because you're comparing yourself to the other person, which is not good. All right. Sometimes people with imposter syndrome feel like they will be found out or exposed as a fake if they don't keep working hard or keep finding ways to improve or make it seem like they know what they're doing, that someone's going to look at them and go, ha ha, you don't know what you're doing. I see you, and which really rarely ever happens. If it does happen, it's usually somebody that's probably has imposter syndrome themselves, and they're trying to point out your flaws to deflect their flaws so that no one will see their flaws and they'll see your flaws. A lot of times that's what happens when people do that. Not all the time, but some of the times. A lot of times. I've seen it in school a lot. I've seen it with students a lot. They'll point out some other student because they're trying to hide their own inadequacies. Which leads me to the next one: unfairly compare themselves to others who are successful in their field. I see this a lot with authors. They compare themselves. Oh, this so-and-so wrote this book and they've got so-and-so this many sales, and my book only has half that many, or something along those lines. Okay, quit comparing yourself to them, because you don't know what they've done. They could have, for all you know, they could have bought that. If they sold 1,000, you only sold 100. Maybe they bought 900 of them themselves, and said, "Oh, look at me! I sold 1,000 books." And they bought 900 so they could go to a Comic-Con or something and sell. But they're not telling you that part. They just look at the raw data and say, "Look, I've sold 1,000 books." And you're comparing yourselves to that. And for all you know, they bought half of them themselves, or majority of them themselves. You don't know. Or maybe they have a huge Instagram or something and all the people on Instagram bought it, but your Instagram isn't that big yet, or something, or some other weird anomaly. You just never know. So comparing yourselves to others as far as level of your level of achievement, it's not a good thing. It makes there's always going to be somebody that's better. There's always going to be somebody that you're going to perceive as better. There's always going to be someone that you perceive as lesser. If it makes you feel better, you can look at someone that's lesser and go, I sold more than they did. But really, you should only focus on your own achievements, because that's what you have control over. You don't have control over theirs. You don't know what they did. It has no idea. So what happens is you get into a vicious cycle of taking on more work. This is what happens with the perfectionist. They get in the cycle of taking on more work to prove themselves, and then always falling short, which leads them to take on more work to prove themselves, on and on. And what happens is they end up taking a lot of work on, and then they can't get it done. And then the boss is like, I thought you said you could handle this, and you can't. And it makes them look worse. And then, I've seen this in teaching. New teachers will come in, and then the principal will ask them to take on like committees, or like, can you be the senior sponsor this year or something? And they've never done it before. And they go ahead and do it, but they're still trying to learn their chops as a teacher. And so now they have this extra responsibility that they didn't want to disappoint the principal with by saying no. So they've taken on this other sponsorship, or maybe they're a cheerleader sponsor or something. They've taken on this other role in addition to something they're already trying to learn, and it just becomes overwhelming. And then the principal come to them, well, I thought you said you could handle this or whatever. And then it looks worse, because just because you didn't say no, well, I need to focus on learning my teaching skills. So, I'm a new teacher. I'd rather not do that senior, junior sponsor, whatever ship. Please, can you ask someone else? And the principal will probably be like, oh, okay, they'll respect that. But if you try it and you fail at it, then they're going to be disappointed. Like, why'd you fail in that? I kind of did that once with I took on the responsibility. I was a brand new teacher in a brand new school district, and I took on the student council. And so never taken student council before. Didn't even know anything about it. Just kind of took on that mantle. And I didn't fail at it necessarily, but it was very, very difficult. And I took it because it came with an extra hour off in the day. You have 1 hour where you get like prep time. I got 2 hours because I had this club, this student council. And so I thought, oh, I'll get an extra hour off. And yeah, I got an extra hour off, but I also got a lot more responsibility, because the student council does quite a bit, a lot more than I thought. But anyway, the point is, I probably shouldn't have done that year, especially being a new teacher in a new school. It was just hard. Like I said, I didn't fail at it. It was just very difficult, and I could have easily failed at it. Came really close. I wasn't very good at it. The next year, I asked them to ask somebody else, and they sent it to somebody else, but it's because I was like a little overwhelmed. Same thing with advanced placement class. I ended up with an advanced placement class that I wasn't ready for, and same thing kind of happened. All right, so other feelings of the imposter phenomenon: crediting luck or other reasons for any success. It's like, oh, I'm only here because I was lucky, or I was in the right place at the right time, and I talked to the right person. And you're not really thinking about, I'm here because of my achievements, because of my education or my expertise. I'm here because I just happen to be in the right place at the right time. You also have the fear of being seen as a failure. You have that low self-esteem. Like, they're going to figure out, everybody is saying, I'm so great at these books, I'm so great at writing and everything. They're just sugarcoating it. They don't really feel that way. They just don't want to hurt my feelings. But at some point, someone's going to tell me the truth, and I'm going to be seen as a failure. That's a big thing with authorship that people worry about. Feeling that overworking is the only way to meet expectations. I just spoke about that a few moments ago. That gets you in that cycle where you take on more than you can handle, and then you end up failing for sure. Whereas you probably would have been fine had you not taken on the extra work. But it's a cycle. It's a vicious cycle. Feeling unworthy of attention or affection. Now, this one happens to be with relationships. Sometimes people will be in a relationship and they'll feel like they're unworthy of the attention or affection from somebody else, because that person's going to find out that you're really not a good person, or they're going to find out that you're really not the way they perceive you or think you are, that there's some underlying. This usually breaks up couples sometimes, and sometimes it's something that I'll give you an example. I'm going to have to. I dated this girl one time who she had dated an Egyptian, and they adopted a couple of it has no racist, no Egyptian stuff. But anyway, he was the reason why I'm pointing out he was an Egyptian is because he took the kids they adopted, and he went to Egypt where she couldn't get them. And so she thought, well, I don't have those kids anymore. And so when we first started dating, she felt like she was a failure, and she was crying and she wanted to break up. And then I'm not the person you think I am. I'm not this great person. Then she told me the story about losing her kids, which wasn't even her fault at all. It wasn't her fault that he ran across back to Egypt and took the kids, and she couldn't go and get them. And, she was working through some sort of legal battle. Anyway, this is a long story. I'm sorry. She was working towards some legal battle to get the kids, and she just didn't just give up, but she felt, and I was like, well, it's not your fault, and I helped her through that, and it was fine. We ended up breaking up anyway, but it was later on. But anyway, all right, and then there's downplaying accomplishments. People will give you comments like, "Wow, the book you wrote was really great." Yeah, it was okay. I could do better. And they're like, "No, really, it was great." And you're just saying that because you're sugarcoating it. You just don't want to hurt my feelings. You might be thinking that in your head. They probably actually enjoyed your book and liked it. They're not just blowing smoke. All right, holding back from reaching attainable goals. This is where you don't feel like you deserve the success. So you might have reached the goal and just not realized you've reached it, and because you haven't reached a goal that somebody else did, or it's not as far as you wanted, or something along those lines, but you actually reached it, you just don't realize, or maybe you're holding back from reaching it because if you reach it, that will maybe put you in a different light or something. All right, so how do you deal with imposter syndrome? This comes from actual medical advice. So I'm going to go over this a little bit, but this is not from me. This is from, psychologists and therapists and things like that. So separate feelings from facts. The experts say that you should separate your feelings because your feelings will betray you. Don't rely on feelings if the facts are available. For example, a feeling would be like, I don't belong here. The fact, I worked my way here from nothing and have made many accomplishments that got me here. That's the fact. So the fact is that you do deserve to be there because you did the work. Regardless of your feelings that you don't belong there, you do belong there, and you should own it that you belong there. Note your accomplishments. This goes along with the first part. If you note your accomplishments, write down the facts that you've done that made you get to the position you're in. Then whenever that little thing sneaks into your head, I don't belong here, you can say, look at what I accomplished. I did this, this, and this, and this, and this is what allowed me to be here. Yeah, so that'll help you squash those feelings with facts over feelings, right? All right, and I put down here, I made a note for myself, beta reader story, my story not responding, not rating or responding. So I'm going to tell you this briefly. I kind of started earlier, but basically when I did start asking for help, because I have the problem where I don't like to ask for help. So I finally did here recently start asking for help, and beta readers to read my stuff, and ARC readers. ARC readers are advanced reader copies that you give out to people, and they read them and they give you a review, like on Amazon, so that you end up publishing a book with reviews instead of having no reviews. A lot of my books have no reviews, or they had no reviews because I refused to ask for help, or I was scared to ask for help. So I've started doing that, started asking. So where the imposter syndrome comes in that I have to fight is like, okay, I have like, I don't know, 20, 25 people reading my books right now, the ones that don't have reviews. And no one has really put any reviews on Amazon or anything. And it's been 3 or 4 weeks now. And so in my mind, with the imposter syndrome seeping in, I'm thinking, oh, they read the book, or they read the first book, because I gave them 2 or 3 books. They read the first book and they didn't like it, and they don't want to put a star review on there because they don't like it, and they don't want to have to put a bad one, so they just don't put one at all. That's what's going on right now. I know it's what's going on, and that's my imposter syndrome, because they probably just haven't finished reading it or haven't gotten around to it. Have patience. It's only been a few weeks, but I don't see results right away. So I'm thinking, well, then there's got to be some reason. oh no, they found out that I'm an imposter, that my books are terrible, and that they don't want to give me a review because they don't want to give me necessarily a bad review. So they just won't give me a review at all or something like that. Your brain will start messing with you. So that's my story. My story to myself is just have patience. Eventually it'll come around. They will the ones that will leave messages will leave reviews will, and the ones that won't. It's fine. There's always going to be someone too, no matter what ARC group or what readership that you have out there, there's always going to be someone that's going to give you like a 1 star or that's going to not like your work, and that's okay. It actually looks better if you have a bunch of reviews and there's a few that are 2s, 3s, and 4s, because if you have all 5-star reviews, no one believes that that's true. They're like, well, that's not a true review because it's all 5s. And if you have a mixture, that's normal. So people will say, okay, this is more accurate of what's going on. It actually helps you rather than hurt you. And then there's also, and this is a little bit paranoid, but it's true. There are also authors out there with imposter syndrome or not, I don't know if they have it or not, that we'll see a new author rising in the ranks and they're getting close to their book, and they'll go on and they'll rate their book. They'll rate it as like a 1 star or whatever, and put this book is terrible or boring and terrible and or something like that, trying to kill your ratings on purpose. Especially if you don't have a lot of ratings on your book already, they'll torpedo it to keep it from overtaking their book, and that does happen. It's probably doesn't happen as much as you think, but I've seen it happen before. It does happen. So sometimes 1 stars on your ratings on your books might not be real, and Amazon will not take it off. They won't. You can respond to them and say, hey, I think this person's the way you can tell is you can click on their name and it will tell you how many reviews they did. And if all their reviews are 1 stars for every book they've ever read, then you can pretty much tell that they're fake. Or if there's only 1 review, they have like a name, and you click on their name, there's only 1 review and it's yours and it's a 1 star, that's suspicious too. But for some reason Amazon doesn't care about that. They won't take it off, so you're stuck with it. So the best thing is to ask people for help and get a lot of reviews so that you can absorb those occasional 1 stars here and there, or 2 stars. All right, another way of dealing with imposter syndrome is to stop comparing yourself to others and their achievements. You're you. So-and-so sold 1,000 books in the first week. I only sold 100. And like I said earlier, you don't know what that person did. That other guy might have sold 1,000 a week because they bought 900 themselves as for copies that they're going to distribute somewhere else. And then they, on the raw data, they just show you the raw data that says, look, I sold 1,000 copies or whatever. They really only sold 100 like you did. And you just don't know. You never know. They might have had a bigger following in one of the social medias, or they might have somebody else that's in their camp that, that helped them sell books or something, and you're by yourself. You never know what they did to sell the 1,000 books. So, or even if they did actually sell 1,000 books. So don't compare yourselves to others. It never ends well. Okay. So here's another way to deal with this. Comes from the experts. Talk to others or talk to a mental health professional, someone who actually is a professional in this stuff and can actually help you with it. Therapists can help you recognize feelings of imposter syndrome. You can talk to others, but if you're one of those people who believe that your friend is lying or sugarcoating to spare your feelings, then I would suggest that you talk to an actual therapist, because the therapist is there to help you, and you're paying them to tell you the truth, and they will tell you the truth, and they can help you recognize those feelings and deal with them and squash the feelings and present the facts. So the moral of the story is, don't be so hard on yourself and set unattainable goals. Set goals that you can actually meet. Don't be in too big of a hurry to finish your book and publish. That's one of the mistakes I made when I was first publishing. I was writing as fast as I could and wanted to get it out there. And I thought that the more books I got out, the faster I got them out, the more money I would make, which is true. But your book also suffers because you need editing, and you need to be slow and take it and do it methodically, where you can actually put out a good product so that you don't have to worry about the bad reviews and stuff. If you stick out a book full of grammatical errors and mistakes and you didn't send it to an editor and and your book cover is terrible and all that stuff, the people who do read it will probably not be that impressed with it. Just letting you know right away. If you just throw something out there, it's something that's polished that someone put a lot of time into is always going to be better than something someone just threw together. We're not Mozart. We can't just compose out of thin air and it be perfect. A lot of us have to go through and edit and change and do stuff to it. Okay. So don't be in too big of a hurry. Like I said, take your time and ignore how fast author A or author B publishes. You are not them. So, so-and-so publishes a book every week and it's great. And she's got, $1 million and a lot of followers. Okay. Well, you're not her. When you write, it may take you 2 or 3 months to write a book where it only takes her a week. I actually know an author like that. What's her name? I can't remember her name. She writes chick lit. She writes about witches, like little witch mysteries, like little cutesy witch mysteries. Anyway, she can crank out one of those things in a week. And so she's written a lot of them. And, the fastest I can crank out a book is maybe a month. I write pretty fast. I can write 2,000 words a day easily without even thinking about it. I can write 3,000 pretty easily. But I realize that if I do that I'll burn out on writing pretty quickly. So I try not to do that. I try to write 1,000 to 2,000 words a day. If you write 1,000 words a day, which is a page and a half basically of typed writing, you'll have a 100,000 word novel in 3 months. Just if you write 1,000 a day, and most people write, 1,000 words is easy. It's a page and a half. So if you write 3,000 words a day, obviously it's going to be a lot faster than that. And then there's NaNoWriMo, which is I probably mispronounced it. It happens every November where people write a whole novel in the month of November. There's ways of doing it, and there's little trackers and stuff you can get. I have some myself where you can actually write one quicker. But you can't look at other people and how fast they write or how slow they write and compare yourself and then get mad because you're not writing as fast as they are or whatever. You're you, write you, do your stuff, and don't worry about what other people do. Eventually, one of the things that's going to happen is time's going to pass no matter what. So if you're not writing, or if you get depressed because, so-and-so did writing faster and you get depressed and think I'm not, and you don't write for a few days, well, that time period is going to pass anyway. So you might as well write 1,000 words, because before you know it, you're going to have all these novels written, and it doesn't matter how author A or author B did it. You're going to write at your own pace, and as you progress, you're going to do stuff, and you're going to have those words written. You're going to have those books written. All right. So if you have imposter syndrome or imposter phenomenon or any things that I've shown you today, my suggestion to you would be to talk to a therapist or seek mental health professional. That's what you should probably do. Oh, there's one other thing that I probably should mention. If you look right down on this side, I think it is down here. Wait, somewhere down there. It says Mark Tyson. That is actually my true real name. So might as well say that from the very beginning, because I'm going to forget to change that to Cleave Bourbon a lot. Cleave Bourbon is my pen name. So an explanation of that real quick. I know this video is getting really long. So the explanation of that really quick is my real name, Mark Tyson. If you Google my name to look up books or anything like that, you end up with a bunch of pages on Mike Tyson, the boxer. So I used to have my books and stuff under my name. So I've changed it to Cleave Bourbon because I know Cleave Bourbon is kind of a weird name, but I chose that name because, number one, it's at the top of the alphabet. Tyson's really far down at the bottom. And also because if you type in Cleave Bourbon, you just get me. You don't get anybody else. So that's why I did it. So if you see Mark Tyson there and you're confused, like, hey, who's Mark Tyson? That is me. That's my actual real given name. Cleave Bourbon is my pen name. So now that that's out of the way, thank you. See you later. Okay, that'll be it for this week. Next time we'll get into a little bit more of the grammar. We'll talk about nouns, possessive nouns, singular possessive, plural possessive, all the types of nouns. We'll get to the parts of speech so that we can do sentence construction. So we're going to start with the first basic building block, which is the person, place, thing, or idea. Then the week after that, I'll talk about verbs, and we'll move into those kind of things so that we can start talking about varying your sentence structure and things along those lines. So anyway, like and subscribe. See, I'm getting better at that. Subscribe if you feel that you got some use out of this video. Come back next time for some more grammar lessons, and then we will move from there. All right. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.